What is up, everybody? What's good? What's good? What's good? What's good? It's your boy Throwback here. This is BodySlam.net's NXT post show. If you see me rocking and rolling, yes, I am doing the Bray Wyatt thing right now. Right there is your boy, the head of the table, the one and the only part of the FIFO crew, and the head of the Wicked Crazy Pinfalls table, my friend, Mr. Drew Nicholas. What's up, bud? How you doing?
Hey, I'm here for what was actually a pretty decent NXT 2.0. There are things that I'll rant about, I'm sure, and we'll get into that. But the show was actually not too bad tonight, and yeah, how'd you enjoy it?
I think it's funny, like before we went on, we pointed out that I'm in a rocking chair and this is the Bray Wyatt thing. I'm sorry. If you guys see like this, the whole thing shaking back and forth, my laptop's on my lap and I'm just too comfortable to get up. Those are the breaks. Anyways, this show was extremely interesting from the jump, though. It was one of those things where it was just like they did the intro and they kind of made it kind of like the hacker a little bit, but Joe Gacy was hacking into the feed for
That
NXT, and it
rule.
kind of helped set up the rest of the night. Though it was like it made it more interesting, and
Yeah,
then you had Pretty Deadly running in here. The beginning of the chaotic show of it made it a lot more fun,
yeah,
but I
I
think
agree.
for me it made the focus on what they have for spring break coming up for their show in 2 weeks, that it's going to be focused on Gacy and Breaker rather than focusing on like what something I'll talk about later. But it was very tech savvy, intricate. It was very interesting.
Yeah,
I you don't see that out of NXT, and especially in WWE where we're doing the whole Bray Wyatt thing right now with the rocking chair, but just all that intricacy about it. And Gacy brings NXT 2.0 into a different light, different way. I mean, what were your feelings on the intro and the start of it?
that was one of the highlights of the show for me, honestly, because they do this formulaic stuff so much that something like I'm just watching the start of the show. I started a little late, like around like 8:30 or so, and I just start. They're showing the replay of last week because that's what they do all the time, and then all of a sudden I just see Joe Gacy pop up and this weird distorted like filming style. It's like a vignette package, video package within a replay package. It was like, oh, this is different. I like this because this is not something that you normally see in WWE, as you just said.
It's also very creative in some ways because it's like you don't go into the regular recap of, oh, Pretty Deadly won the tag titles last week, the Creed brothers and stuff like that. It was very, very interesting to see how they played it out. And for me, it was refreshing because you're so programmed. And this goes into the gay me freaking character a little bit, but you're so programmed to um have the same formula going in over and over and over again
Yeah.
at the beginning of a show. Like AEW does it differently. They'll start a match instantaneously, and NXT is trying to pick up that. But this was very creative, very intricate. It set up multiple things throughout the night. It didn't keep it like squished into one thing,
Yeah.
which the main roster tends to have a problem doing. And it made it a lot more fun. Like you had, you know,
Well, while this part was great, there is one part of it that I was not a fan of, which was not the ending part was okay. We'll get to that when we get there. I don't know if you want to do this like in order or just talk about the entire thing.
we're doing it like how you and me always do. It goes wherever it goes.
Yeah. So they do that, and then because it was a very good story-driven thing throughout the night, but then there's one part where Braun just goes into this room and there's mirrors around. And then he just looks in this mirror and right over his shoulder there's
It's gotta be
Gacy.
Gene!
And then he's not there. When he turned around, it's like, that's that Ultimate Warrior Lily thing.
Something Kane would do in certain aspects with mirrors and all
Yeah,
that
and
stuff.
then
Yeah.
so I put that on Twitter. It was like Ultimate Warrior Lily because those are the worst iterations of that type of a thing in wrestling history. Thinking that those were the only two times that it ever had happened, and then somebody reminded me, oh wait, Undertaker did that in the Randy Orton feud. So that was probably the best iteration of that during that
You
feud.
know, and you know what it kind of reminded me of? And this is not a downer of repeating the same formula over again. It's just different ways of doing it. It kind of reminded me of the AJ Styles Undertaker part of their match where he just sits right up behind on the tractor and AJ's like, "Oh, this is all done. This
Oh
is
yeah.
good." And it's like the whole thing, smoke and mirrors. It's just you want to get people into it. I thought the mirror aspect of it was kind of like him looking around. The whole story with this is that they're connecting the dots from the past few weeks, which is great. The problem is if it's a cat, and I keep telling people, and they don't understand. We're hardcore fans. We watch this religiously, whether we want to or not, because well, that's something we love watching. But if it's a casual fan that doesn't understand the aspects of this stuff, like if you don't understand why this guy Braun Breaker, who is the champion, is going against Joe Gacy, who is his challenger, which we don't know where Hartwell is. That just doesn't seem. That almost seemed like it was Redcon all of a sudden.
Hmm.
It's just. It seems to me like they're trying to make the story go, like putting Braun back into the cage where his dad was, and you know, having him go through the mirrors and stuff like that, and Gacy looking in the camera after saying, "I'm going to finish this," and it's just, it's it starts off way it did, and it just literally slowly they just, to quote a line from Pauly Shore, they squeeze the juice too much.
Yeah, it started off hot because that was a great way to start it. That part where Braun ran into grizzled young veterans, that was good too, where he could hear somebody's voice and then it was playing, from this tablet inside the cage that his dad was in. That was fine too. I didn't mind that part. But once that finished, once he went into the room with the mirror, and then the weird security camera thing that Gacy was looking at, and
Yeah.
then the ending. The ending wasn't bad, but so I hadn't watched NXT. I didn't watch last week, so I wasn't really like in the know of everything that happened, except for Duke and Dexter kind of forming this tag team, which we'll talk about later. Um, yeah. So I was like, okay. So like you just mentioning now the guy that was um with Gacy. What was his name again? Harwood?
Harwood or Harwell or something like that. Yeah.
I don't even remember. Uh, I completely forgot about him. So like that is weird that he wasn't there. And when um when Gacy said to Braun the line before he got pushed over the edge there, I thought that it was going to be Harwood doing that. And that's kind of Harwood because that's Dax Harwood in AEW. I don't remember Harlan. That's Harlan.
Harlan.
That's what it is. Um I thought it was going to be Harlan pushing him off. But then he just pushes him off and then there's these weird cloaked people.
It almost
It,
looked like a kind of like a tip to the cap kind of thing to Taker because no one's going to be doing the Druid thing like Taker did, but now it just seems like Gacy's gonna do something along the lines of like a cult
So
druid kind of thing.
because I didn't watch last week, was there something that happened where they kind of just dropped the inclusivity thing with Joe Gacy, or is it
No,
just poof vanished?
it just made him by himself for the most part. It's just it's interesting to see them trying to get to the show in 2 weeks. But now it's like, okay, well, we're seeing tones of Taker storylines and stuff like that, Bray and everything else. You're taking bits and pieces along here. But tonight it made more sense. I mean, the way the show started with all the flashing and stuff, that was very creative. And then you have Pretty Deadly in the ring talking about how they beat all four other teams to be the champion, that they're the best. And then Grizzly Young Veterans come out. Then you have El Gato del Fantasma come out, and it's just Bedlam breaks out. They basically brawl against each other, and Pretty
Yeah,
Deadly just scoots out. You know,
that was
break
weird how they did that. It's like the Pretty Deadly match and Duke and Dexter ended, and then all of a sudden lights go out and there's Joe Gacy up on that platform all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
and
They're
pulling a
so
freaking
rushed. Like they just go through so many things so quickly. Like the beginning, after that video package that we talked about, the grizzled young vets come out, and then Legado del Fantasma just attack them, and then Braun Breaker, it's like coming through the crowd from the opposite direction as that's going on. There's just all this weird, like, okay, this is going on. Now this is something totally different that's coming in while this is still happening. It's like a weird rushing of segments all mismatched together. And it's like, okay, can we just take a breather? Can we take a moment here, please?
it's like when they got to the start of the show with the recap and how Gacy interfered and stuff like that. It went from that to 100. But the only problem about the start of the show with this space of time is that felt like I was reliving, Bray all over again. It's not a knock against NXT. It's WWE's intellectual property that they can use that creative stuff with them. But it felt like you said it was being rushed a little bit. And then after Gacy says, "Come find me," and all of a sudden you hear him laughing in a
Yes,
hundred different
I
things.
on Twitter,
I just
I
was in the back
yes,
of my head had Bray
yes,
literally like his hand in it at some point.
yeah.
Now,
I literally said on Twitter, I said, "Oh no, they're giving him the Bray Wyatt laugh track thing. Gotta stop. Can't do that. That's a no." I
yeah,
don't mind the faces thing. Like his face can be all over the place. I liked when they did that in the Thunderdome with Bailey and Bianca. Um, Yeah, I remember all these weird things sometimes. I covered this stuff for a while for Cage Side Seats, so everything's burned in my memory of people said like, "Oh, how did you remember the Lily Shayna thing?" I was covering it, so all this stuff is burned into my head.
get it
Um,
out, get it out. It's seared in my head.
no, I can't, unfortunately. Yeah, so that was exactly what that reminded me of. The Bray Wyatt laughter when the lights would go out for the Fiend, and it would just be the same laughter playing over and over and over and over. It's like, can't you just give him a mic and let him laugh into it so this way it doesn't sound weird?
I mean, it would make more sense if you're gonna make something different. I mean, and I'll be honest, we shit on WWE for a lot of stuff. And one of those things, I'm not doubting this could happen in the next month or so, but we just passed the dates of that hellish Monday 2 years ago. So it's like two, three
Oh, the
years
release
ago.
day?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm more cautious with WWE now. Don't get me wrong, I love NXT. I love how they're doing certain things to make it different than what it is. Wow, last week I was on here with Bad Blood, and I'm like, I prefer the old school way, but I can see what they're trying to add some of the old stuff into the new stuff to mesh into something. Am I happy about it? Not really, but I
No.
mean, it's one of those
I will
things that
always
I'm excited to
appreciate
see where they go from there.
the black and gold era. That's the Gargano era and the Finn Balor and Kevin Owens and the Bailey Sasha takeover matches. And it's that's the NXT that I won't forget. And the problem with a lot of, even not just with NXT 2.0, but with the main roster, the shows are just so forgettable. Like, it, and it's not like the week goes by and then you see the replays of what happened the week prior, and then you're like, oh yeah, that happened. Oh yeah, that happened. No, it's like after the show is done, like I already don't remember some of the things that I watched.
I mean, for tonight, for example, there was a couple of points on there, but a couple of segments that stuck out to me the most. We'll break that down and stuff like that. What were your thoughts on the match between El Gato del Fantasma and the Grizzly Young Veterans? Because I thought it was a pretty decent match. I thought it set up something, but the veterans are right. They deserve a shot. It
Hmm.
feels like they've always come up short ever since they came up here to
Yeah,
America from the UK, and they were really good too. I mean, it's
yeah.
like, why don't you give them like a good example? I'm not shitting on MSK. Wesley's on his own right now, but if you're gonna give MSK a title shot at that one, two, three, four times, and you have Grizzly Young Veterans sitting there not being used, why don't you just give them something to do and put it up instead of being in catering? I mean, come on now, be
Well, they
smart
were
about it.
totally right. They were totally right at the start of and I've ranted about this, and other people have ranted about this, better people than me. They're totally right what they were saying at the start of the show. It's like, what were Pretty Deadly doing in that tag gauntlet and not them? That made no sense at all. Like, Pretty Deadly literally just showed up the week prior and revealed as the attackers of the Creed brothers, and then they're in a tag gauntlet. How does that make sense?
It doesn't really at all. I mean, for me, what, and I was pointing this out, is just it makes absolutely no sense, and I need shit to make sense. And for me, it's getting to the point where it's like I love watching NXT, and I'll still watch it, but half the time it makes sense and half it doesn't. It's like a good example someone said to me is that I could make a bag of shit sound like $1 million, and that one person out of 100 will buy that bag of shit because he thinks it smells like $1 million.
Yeah, it's that's the beauty of wrestling, is that it is subjective, and people can like something and people cannot like the thing that that person liked. It's that's how it is, and that's how it should be, and I'm glad. Unfortunately, you get into the tribalism stuff where there's just pro WWE, anti AEW, and the other way around. Uh, that kind of make certain fan bases toxic, unfortunately. But you're totally right. It's like somebody will buy into something, and perfect example of that is uh well, so I liked the match between GYV and Legado del Fantasma. I thought that GYV were actually going to win, so I was a little surprised when they didn't, because I thought maybe that opening promo, I thought maybe was going to lead to a little bit of a push for them. That's not the case, obviously. But what I was saying about the subjectivity of wrestling, the dueling chants that Tiffany Stratton and Soray were getting, that's like, what is this crowd chanting for Tiffany Stratton for? I don't get that at all.
I think the interesting line is that Blood has said a couple of times. It's like the clueless wrestler, a clueless girl becomes a wrestler and decides that daddy wants to use all the money to make sure she wins.
It's so
It
stupid. And her entrance theme sounds like a cheap kids bop version of a popular song on the radio right now. Like
it
it
sounds
sounds
almost
bad.
I'll say this because it made me think of it. I've been sitting on trying to think about this. Is that it's almost like a Kids Bob version of Barbie Girl.
Yeah, perfect. That yeah. I mean, it's just bad. It's really
Yeah,
bad.
I think there was a couple of botch spots in there. One of them was um, towards the finish where it was just there was a blind tag, and one of the guys from Grizzly and Verdance had one of them set up for a finisher for a tag finisher, but it just didn't seem like it went well. They missed probably an inch on a spot. If I could be wrong, but
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
one of them like slipped. So I thought that's interesting too because I think it was Joaquin Wild. Was his name?
yeah.
He like went on the ropes and then did not execute the move very well. Thankfully, he got caught by I think it was Zach Gibson that was on the floor.
Hmm.
Um, so that was a thankfully that didn't lead to something bad. Um, but they could have kind of like used that to maybe finish it differently instead of just going back into the regular move that was clearly going to happen before that botched spot. But you know that's the nature of it sometimes.
Well, there was a couple of botches in the entire show too. One very
One I
noticeable
really
was
liked actually because if it was a botch, that was played off very well. If it was a botch, it still was played off very well. We'll get there when we get there.
I think well I was gonna get to a couple of that. I thought the one within the match with Quinn and Lee
That's the
where
one.
he jumped off the rope and just like missed and it just basically got into a finish. It was just it felt like the whole match on that was completely rushed. It made Quinn
I
look
liked it
strong, but
actually.
it made Wesley weak because he if you're gonna basically put him in the doghouse, what other way are you gonna do it than making him lose a couple of matches here and there? I mean,
So I didn't think that this was actually bad. Uh, First of all, Zion Quinn and Wesley,
that could be a good tag team.
you know where I'm going with that. Uh, um, yeah. So give me that a lot, please. I didn't think this was bad, and I thought it was interesting how they addressed the breakup of MSK with Wesley. Kind of just like making it seem like it's just been a rough couple of weeks for Wes. um, Obviously, we all know what really happened, and obviously, they're not going to make that a storyline on TV, nor should they. I don't think that they should. Um, so I didn't mind Wes losing because of two reasons. One, the spot that we just mentioned, the botched spot, if that was botched, that was a very good on the fly way of making it look like that botched spot was the reason why he lost the match.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. I really liked that a lot. Um, and if it was planned, that's great too. Like if that was a planned spot where it's like, oh, he didn't catch the ropes properly, maybe he's not thinking properly or whatever. Um, I thought it was executed really well. I thought that was like, oh, he slipped off the rope. He didn't get to do that move. Here comes the forearm from vicious looking forearm, by the way,
Hmm.
from Zion Quinn, and then he gets pinned and he loses. And so I didn't mind it because it looked like a natural move got fucked up. Now you're going to lose because of it. And I also don't mind him losing because, well, Wesley just went through MSK being not a thing anymore. He's got a lot on his mind. So maybe he's going to lose one or two matches to kind of like build him back up into the single star. I mean, it's clear the single star that he can be. Absolutely. Because, boy, the first 20 seconds of that match was hard hitting, fast paced, perfect type of wrestling that I love. So I
Speed
really liked
wrestling.
the whole thing. I love the
It,
whole thing.
it is like a speed wrestling match,
Yeah.
and like I look at it as like a hardcore fan. Like I'm trying to like subject my viewing it because especially with this show is that I'm trying to look at it as me being the hardcore fan, but also seeing the casual side of it. So like if it's still their problem with WWE mostly is trying to get the casual fan for the most part. So it's like I'm looking at more so that angle. I'm loving every second of it like you are, but I'm also trying to be subjective and see, well, if I just turned this on, I want to know what's going on here. Where is this going to lead? And I think for me, that beginning of the match was hard hitting, like you said, fast paced. I loved every second of it, but towards the end, that botch kind of like whether it's planned or not, it kind of just was like it deflated it a little bit.
I
So
understand. Like, so you kind of want West to be victorious in that loss of the tag team and the tag titles and stuff. If you've been watching the show, you want to root for him to win, obviously. So, I understand what you're saying.
I think for me, I could see Zion Quinn because they were trying to try to get him with somebody to tag with. I think Wesley would be the perfect person to do that with. I mean, they're going to build Zion Quinn as a monster for him to do a singles run, but I think what would work perfectly would be him with Lee for the short term, just so that way it builds Lee up as an individual and builds Zion because they can bounce each other and learn from each other a lot more. Wes is
Yeah.
more experienced in NXT. Quinn is learning on the fly. Put them together. It's just basically both of them are basically bouncing off each other ideas.
Right.
That would work. Plus, they would be a legit threat in the tag division too, which is extremely stacked right now.
Well, I mean, well, we'll get to my whole NXT tag team division stuff when we talk about the main event.
Knowing you, you're itching just to let it go right now. But
Uh,
um, it, what do you think about the whole? We'll progress into it, but Legado del Fantasma won the match, obviously. The other thing that got me was Cora Jade's promo, and they actually pulled out an actual picture of her and Natty when she was a teenager. And it's she's technically still a teenager, but um, it's
no, she's
just
not. Is she like 21 or something?
I thought she was 19.
Oh, maybe you're right. I don't know.
But what it was interesting is that it's just she was like, "You were my idol." That whole "You're my idol, and I want to destroy you now because you hurt my feelings" kind of thing. It's just we're definitely going to see that match in 2 weeks. It's already happening, but they just threw a caveat into that whole idea of a match, and I will get that in a second. But it's just the way they're setting up this special show. It's seeming like they want to make it like a hardcore takeover after Stand and Deliver because last week for me and after Stand and Deliver because I thought Stand and Deliver was really good. It just deflated all that momentum they had and went right down. And it's like, okay, well, we got to scrap everything, rebuild it back up. Let's start from
Stand
here.
and
And
Deliver means nothing now. If you go
yeah,
back and watch that, the tag titles aren't on the same people anymore. The men's title isn't on the same person anymore. The women's title is the only title that's still on the same person.
and the men's
But
tag team title, you're talking about the women's tag titles were changed, all that
yeah,
stuff. Yeah.
and none of that mattered anymore because we just have a totally different show now compared to 3 weeks ago.
So that's why I'm like looking at it is this is going to be them rebuilding up because they're trying to rush rebuild for 2 weeks from now for that special show they have
Yeah,
for spring break. It's just I'm hoping it pays out. I hope they do really well with the build so far with Gacy and Breaker. They are the whole thing be with Natty and Cora Jade. It seems like Cora Jade's more invested into it. Natty's just like, hey, I'm just here right now. Whatever. I'll beat everybody. and the whole line of her saying like, "I'm doing this before they get up here and take a spot from somebody." It's just the petty veteran going against the upstarts. It's just like the underdog, the person going against that.
I kind of don't care about this. It's kind of boring to me. I don't like Natalia that much. I mean, as a person, I know she's a good person, and I have nothing against her personally, but I just don't care about really anything that she does because she's just not interesting to me as a character on TV. So like to hear the incredible reaction from the NXT crowd to her, I'm like,
You kind of like tilt your head like,
what? Why? Like I went back and I didn't watch the whole show last week, but I saw the Cora Jade spot with her where she attacked her. And I'm like, this crowd is like acting like this person that they haven't seen for years has made this grand return. And there's like holy shit chance for Natalia?
Well, you got to think about the last time Natalia was on NXT programming is when she had that match with Charlotte a long time ago. When
That was
beginning
even
when
really that was even really before like the heart of the black and gold era of NXT. That was that long ago that
yeah,
happened.
I think it was 2015. Um, it's just they brought her down here because they want her probably to see like being the measuring stick to see what's up. What would be interesting is, and I see this starting to head up, is that they want to put the belt on Cora. That's kind of obvious. But they need to get her better. So Natty being here will make, because Natty's a great coach and a trainer, will progress that more. I think it's going to end up being a triple threat match, and everybody's going to call me crazy about this, or a fatal forward. But it's Natty's going to be in the mix for the women's NXT title. If they decide to bring Toxic Attraction up to the main roster to cause havoc, I really think Natty will be the champion for NXT, and then literally you'll get. So I know, but just that's the way I think they're
Listen,
gonna go.
I don't mind her being a measuring stick for the NXT women's division. I think that's actually a good idea. The problem, however, is Natalia is more over than the baby faces in that division, as judged from last week's her return to
Yeah,
NXT and this week's match with I don't remember her name, but uh the crowd is chanting for Natalia and she's the heel.
yeah.
So that's like that doesn't really make sense to me.
And then right after the match, after Natty wins, Nikita Lyons comes out, says, "I'm coming for you." I'm like, oh no. I'm like, oh God,
uh,
no, please. Not
but
that.
wait, I
You know
mean,
what?
you forget you have to say at the end what she said. She's flexible.
Yeah, I wasn't
So
gonna go there. But
the
I'm just
crowd
saying,
pops for
like, all of a sudden the hair
that.
flipped and be like, "I'm coming for you." I'm like, oh my God, WWE, please do not kill somebody else.
I think that match will be good.
Oh,
Like,
it'll be a barn burner. It'll be extremely physical. It's
and a lot of men will have the lotion and the towels ready. Um, because, Nikita's flexible. But the point in that is that doesn't do anything for me, unfortunately. I'm a Wesley kind of guy. But the whole thing about it is that I worry about a lot of the divisions in NXT because, and you know what? We'll transition this into the main event so I can talk about
yeah,
the the tag team division. With the women's division, it's like okay, so Mandy is the champion. Hasn't been that great. The toxic attraction stuff is just bad. Like the promo that they cut with Roxanne in the back, oof, that was bad. That was some bad
Yeah,
stuff.
Roxy. Yep.
And then now we've got Roxy, however, Roxy was her former name, and now it's Roxanne.
Yeah, but
Um,
it's Roxanne Perez.
right. So so Roxanne Perez now has the same story of a My Career mode creator wrestler from 2K20. Like literally, if you played 2K20, if you saw 2K20 being played by anybody, um, it's literally like, oh hey, there's a guy and a girl, and the girl, her name was Red that was her tag name, not tag name, her nickname from high school was Red because she always saw red when she got angry. It was so stupid. And the fact that I remember that is even terrible. But it's like
You're
she
just
had the
like me,
list.
like useless knowledge that everybody thinks it's dumb. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, it's useful one day.
Yeah. So she has her dream. It's her dream to be in the WWE and play herself in the video game. I think that was the guy's dream, was to be play himself in the video game. And then the girl's dream is like, oh yeah, I want to, it's what I've always wanted and I've always dreamed of. And it's like, we don't have to introduce wrestlers this way. Just let them be badasses and pound people and win matches. Like it's really easy for somebody to get over, as long as they're not like toxic attraction levels of bad. Uh, just win matches and be a decent talker and have a good story. That's really how you get over in this business. Uh, but when you have a company like WWE creating because this is the classic thing. It's not just with Roxanne. When Ricochet got to the main roster, Ricochet was the superstar that the superhero that dreamed of being in WWE, and everybody is so happy to be here. And it's like it's this recycled, lazy thing that
It's
just
the regurgitated bullshit that
yeah.
everybody has to ingest. Yes.
So toxic attraction is bad. Natalia being more over than the baby faces in the division is bad. Roxanne being 2K20 my career mode, bad. And then Cora Jade is not as over as the heel veteran coming in, so that's bad. There's just a whole bunch of bad, and really the only good thing is Nikita Lyons, which is so weird to say. Like she's like one of the shining spots. Soray is good, but then they had Tiffany Stratton beat her, and Tiffany Stratton is
That
not
didn't make any
WWE.
sense at all.
Yeah, that did not make sense, and nor am I interested in that at all. And Wendy Chu. I'm sorry, I forgot about Wendy Chu. Wendy Chu
Who,
is
who? Wendy Chuk. Oh
yeah.
my god.
I like her, and I actually liked her making JC lose because of that interference. I didn't mind that. That was actually fine for me. Um, but yeah, it's just like that whole division is so weird. It's so weird. And then now leading into the tag team division, I so people who know me, you may think I might like Pretty Deadly because they have a nice fashion sense and they're not unattractive men. However, I can't fucking stand them. I can't stand them. The yes boy thing makes me cringe. And it's just like, ugh, it's so bad. And the whole thing of them being the tag champions right now is just wild. It's absolutely wild. I don't understand it at all. Can you help me out here?
It's. I think it's just they wanted to do something different, and with the 2.0, and they're trying to branch some of the UK talent to come over here, which for me has the feeling of the death of NXT UK slowly happening. Because you brought in Imperium over, and now they're on the main roster. You brought Pretty Deadly up there. You brought Kaylee Ray over here, who hasn't been on TV and since Stand and Deliver. I mean, it's just they're gonna bring Jamie over here one time, and it's just
They
it
spent the booking going to Stand and Deliver telling us that 3 tag teams mattered the most. MSK, unfortunately, Imperium,
in the
unfortunately,
Creeds.
and the Creed brothers. The Creed brothers are the only tag team standing out of those 3 right now, and well, in NXT at least. And Pretty Deadly just come out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they're the tag champions. Last week's Gauntlet, that was the Creed
Horse,
brothers moment.
yeah, and it was horse shit the way it ended. I'm sorry, I'm being a little critical about that gauntlet match, but like I said, if you call a spade, you like if it has to make sense, because if you're building the Creed brothers, who are your Dusty Cup champions, all the way up, and you're bringing Pretty Deadly over from the UK, who are the former UK tag champions, why? Oh, and by the way, the whole thing of them texting somebody with a phone number 781, which is a Massachusetts number, area code, it's like me saying, "Oh my God, I'm texting Drew from like, you know, a 619 number, but I come out and hit him, and I'm all the way in Massachusetts."
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. It's like it made me feel kind of like I was being deceived, because half the time, I gotta put this down a little bit. Half the time, I felt like at least 4 or 5 times when they were saying, "Oh, the phone calls they're from this area code," da da da. I was like, okay, so it could be an underlying indie tag team that nobody's heard of, but they are trying to build up, and I was all excited. I was like, oh well, chaotic wrestling and stuff like that. That could be it. And no, it's Pretty Deadly from Britain. It didn't make any sense.
Yeah,
It
it should have been, and I mean, I guess with hindsight now, it's good that it wasn't. It should have been MSK that were the ones who attacked the Creed brothers.
I could understand that, yeah.
That's where I thought it was going. I thought that the Creed brothers were so like my whole prediction for Stand and Deliver was that MSK were going to be revealed as the attackers to the Creed brothers, and that would cause them to have a side thing which would make Imperium retain just from that, like maybe, they turn heel during the match or something, and then it becomes obvious that they were the attackers, and then Imperium take advantage of that and get the victory. So that's what I thought was going to happen at Stand and Deliver. With hindsight, it's better that it wasn't, because of what happens. But like, what is this? You could have, and this again, I said this on my own channel yesterday, and it's been ranted about 1,000 times by better people than me. They were, as you just said, you just reminded me, actually, totally forgot they were the Dusty Cup winners. They were the Dusty Cup winners, the Creed brothers. They should have won at Stand and Deliver, and they didn't. They should have won in the Gauntlet match. They didn't. It's starting to become a little bit of a too little, too late situation. And you don't want people, when a team wins the titles in a grandiose way for the first time ever, you don't want people to go, oh, well, it's about time. That's not the way that a championship is supposed to be celebrated. The stand and deliver, okay, fine. You didn't do it as Stand and Deliver. MSK got disbanded, whatever. Gauntlet match. They're in as number one. Now you do it here. This is where it's supposed to happen. Okay, Pretty Deadly are in the match, whatever. But Pretty Deadly are brand new to NXT America, the American NXT at least. You know, they haven't had a sip of coffee in this division. Just let them beat them. The Creed brothers finally get that championship victory that they deserve. You've built up the Creed brothers from pre-Dusty Cup. I didn't care about them at all to begin with. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, you know what? They were Diamond Mine. They're winning matches. They're entertaining. Now they win the Dusty Cup. Okay, so now they've got to win the tag titles. Stand and Deliver, they don't win it. The Gauntlet match, they don't win it. You know, it's gotta hurry up because otherwise it's gonna be an well, it's about time moment instead of oh yay, this is so great. You know, you don't want to be going oh it's about time. Jeez.
I think that if giving the Creed brothers a week and then they're Pretty Deadly's gonna be like, oh well, I don't have any other opponent, or some shenanigans will happen. I wouldn't be surprised the Creed brothers say, hey, you didn't beat all of us, you beat just us, and then just point out that if it was a one-on-one, the whole thing would be different, and you have the tag team champions at their spring break show in 2 weeks.
Well, that's fine. And even if they wanted to do that, and that's the blow off, so to speak, where they end up winning the match in the one-on-one tag team situation, I'm okay with that if they do that. But the problem now is that all these other tag teams are trying to get it, and the Creed brothers weren't even on the show tonight. So that worries me a little bit for the division. Like, grizzled young veterans, okay, fine. I thought that they deserved to win and maybe get a title shot. But then they have their match with Legado del Fantasma, and they lose, so now they're gone. They're back into obscurity. And then all of a sudden, at the beginning of the match, the little graphic comes up in the corner of the screen. Duke and Dexter have a tag title match?
Yeah.
Oh. Look, I don't mind Duke and Dexter together. I actually thought that
oh my god, now I have a name in my head for their tag team.
The part, look, the whole like making out thing between the two couples and all that weird stuff, that was weird. But I legitimately popped when Indy told Duke, well, you just have to get into his mindset, or whatever she was saying when they were sitting in the locker room, and then he just sits down next to Dexter and he's just making faces at him. I'm sorry, that was fucking funny. That was really funny.
What are you doing? Like, I'm trying to get in my mindset. Oh my god.
That was funny. The thing that happened with Joe Gacy in the beginning of the show and that moment were the two big highlights of the show for me. Like, that was legitimately funny.
I have a funny feeling if I tell you that tag name, you would pop the big D's.
That makes a lot of sense, actually.
It's just, I think Loomis should be in that championship mix. It's well overdue. He's kind of now gotten into that NXT mode where, and I hate to say this, Cesaro's awesome. Claudio is amazing. But I think Dexter is where he was just in NXT. And it's sad because I want him to be NXT champion because he's that good.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this version of him can be the champion, though, at this point. I feel like it's very... Unless they build him up better, but, like, he's really just, like, a comedy guy right now, and it's unfortunate because he's actually a really good wrestler.
Mhm.
And, I like watching his matches, but this whole angle with the two couples, and now he's a tag team guy, or maybe that's not going to be a thing since they lost, but like that's still going to be happening for a little bit, at least until the spring break show. Um, so I'm like, I don't see it right now. Unfortunately, I don't see this version of Dexter Lumis being champion.
How did you think the tag match was between Pretty Deadly and I'm just gonna call him this just because it makes you
The Big
pop the
D's.
big D's.
Um, the match was fine. I'm really not a fan of Pretty Deadly at all. Like maybe I'll get there at some point, but woof. I'm
Yeah,
not a fan.
the spot where they slide out underneath the ropes and there's Indy and Persia just standing there so haplessly when they're waving it to the crowd and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And next
I
thing you
didn't like
know,
that.
like Dexter and Duke are there, and it's just like the jealous, significant other kind of thing where you're just like you want to beat the crap out of it because somebody else is doing something they're not supposed to.
Yeah, I
It's
wasn't a fan of
just
that.
it didn't make any sense. It's like what make back to what I was saying. Please make sense. Make everything make sense. Um, so pretty much that was NXT. They set up a bunch of good stuff. I can't wait to see Nikita Lyons versus
We talked about
Natty.
everything?
Hmm?
We talked about everything?
Pretty much that I can remember.
Oh. I that seems so quick. Like, oh, okay, we're
Well, we've
done.
been on for almost an hour.
Yeah, I guess I tweeted about the show. Oh my god. I called Pretty Deadly the two Lord Farquaads because that just that makes sense for me.
But for me, it set up a lot of stuff. Nikita Lyons versus Natalia. They pushed the narrative for Cora Jade to go after Natty. They they introduce, a new talent into the NXT fold, Roxy. So
Carmelo and Santos Escobar.
that was really good, but like I said, that was one of the other botch spots. There was like two or three of them in there. The one where they jumped off the ropes and, it was supposed to set a move for Carmelo, but then he bounced off the rope and dropped straight down and got caught on the ring mat, and literally had to
Yeah.
set Bree back up and stuff. I think that's why it was pretty forgettable. The ending where you don't forget about it,
That was another great moment too. I just because yeah, I had my it just unlocked in my brain again. It's like, oh yeah, that moment too, because that was another. It's like Tony D. Tony D's got some mob guys. That was really good actually. And then at the end where they got the boot on the tire and the
and
dead
then the
fish on the
fish.
windshield. That's like that's a very Italian thing. So we're in the fish game and
Yeah, that's why the
occasionally.
line "you're sleeping with the fishes"
Yeah,
kind of
it's
happens.
that would I actually really enjoyed that too. So there's stuff here and there. I think that Braun and Joe Gacy will be fun. Nikita and Natalia will be fun, and that'll get lots of people talking as well. And
Wendy Chu finding a partner and trying to get the tag belts. Give me more Wendy Chu. She's funny as hell when you leave her to her own devices.
yeah, and please don't make Soray lose again to Tiffany Stratton, please. I like her. Don't do that.
And pretty much that's NXT in a nutshell. Except Drew is not in the nutshell, and I'm in a freaking rocking chair being Bray Wyatt.
You just need the laugh track now.
I don't want that laugh track. Please no. So a couple of things we'll cover, and then we'll sign off. Is that what are your thoughts on Kushida not being in NXT anymore in WWE overall?
Oh yes, that's right. Thank God, because he was not treated right in WWE really at all. He had won the Cruiserweight Championship, and it seemed like they were going to do something, But then NXT 2.0 started, and they just squashed the cruiserweight thing completely. I think he should go back to New Japan. I think that's probably the best. I think they're doing like they're having something, a tournament or something coming up. I think best of Super Juniors or something is coming up in like June or July. I think.
Yeah.
Um, I think he'd be perfect for it. I I mean AEW. He could go to AEW, but I think for now going back to New Japan would be the right spot for him. And I mean, he could always work with AEW because, probably what they're going to announce tomorrow is the partnership for that show between AEW and New Japan. And just like intertwine stories, like, people from New Japan have come over to AEW and worked in AEW, Impact as well with the Bullet Club. And I think he'll be all right. Where he doesn't have to be like AEW ROH. I think New Japan is the right spot for him.
No, I agree, New Japan. But another thing I could see him as is not in AEW, but a branch of AEW. I think he can end up in ROH just to set up a
Good.
lot of the
Yeah.
stuff to be a pillar on that. I mean, him and Joe would be great. I mean, we almost got that in NXT. There's so many things you could do with Kushida, but the problem also, it's a major blow for WWE because if you're going to have somebody who's going to be a ambassador in Japan for your NXT brand, that's a huge blow right there. And Kushida could do so much for any
Yeah.
company. I think he's
Definitely.
like he's a new generation of William Regal. Like once he wants to pass on the talents. It's never ending.
Yeah, I think really anywhere he goes, he's going to be better off than if he were in WWE.
So why don't we wrap up on a positive note at least? We got a lot of good stuff on Lash Legend versus Nikita Lyons. Was one of the matches announced. It's next week. Hopefully he's going to be a great show overall. We'll see. I'm curious to see where they go from Breaker and Gacy from here after that trust fall kind of thing that happened at the end of the show. But we'll see what happens.
Also, before we go, I do remember that somebody who has been on the show a bunch, his name is Shane. I'm supposed to be facing him in a certain predictions tournament for a certain title that really should be mine right now if WWE didn't screw me out of it. I maybe we'll meet on this podcast one day, or maybe we'll meet on another podcast and we can exchange pleasantries before our match at Money in the Bank for the Wicked Crazy title.
Yours is at Backlash. You're gonna end up trying to get that
Backlash.
soon.
That's right. Yeah, Backlash. Because I'm telling you now, there's a title that's going to go in that slot right there. A title is going there. Just letting you know, there is going to be a title in that slot right there.
I have a funny feeling I'm supposed to mail it out this week that I probably will end up getting it returned right before Backlash. Oh
Remember, right
God.
there, a title is going in that slot.
Or a baby bottle's going right there too, or something. You never know, man. Especially with August coming up. Oh boy. Um, Other than that, I'll start off every Tuesday night here. NXT post show for bodyslam.net. Do a good deed. Go to www.slamchats.com to support bodyslam.net. You get great content from Cassidy, breaking news all the time. You got the jabronis on here, the Roundtable Podcast, ADHD. You got so much stuff. I'm hoping, Cassidy, if you're watching, please let me do a wicked crazy pinfall show and have it on Body Slam at least once. I'll take one time on any platform for any of them, but it'd be great to do it at least once. And then every Thursday night, Wicked Crazy Pinfalls, you got the guy right there next to me, my friend Drew, Big Money Drew, head of the table, Wicked Crazy Pinfalls out there sometimes. Or as half the people that have been on the show have said, Drew, 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 Drew.
Yes, Maggie, Dennis Farrell.
Sean Ross Sapp.
Sean could have said Drew if Anakin had paid him
Well,
more,
Tiny, he
maybe.
did.
Yeah.
If you listen to the end of the cameo, it's like Drew.
Yeah, he just needed to get that last one in.
So,
But he did say it in the beginning, so maybe we'll just count that as 3.
yeah, we got a lot of stuff to cover this week. We have AEW stuff for tomorrow. We've got tonight's NXT, some of the news that's been coming out left and right. Opinions, everything that's gearing up for, and on top of that, in about a month or so, we'll be going 2 years doing that show. So go check it out. youtube.com/throwback27. I need one more subscriber to get affiliate for Twitch, so do that if you're watching that
Do
by
it
any
now.
chance.
Go do it now.
Also, check out Drew's channel, Big Money Drew's on YouTube and stuff like that. And
Fightful Overbooked. I am on Fightful Overbooked with Joel Pearl. We do hits and misses, top 5 hits, top 5 misses of the week in wrestling, and our favorite wrestler of the week. We will be, we took a little bit of a hiatus because Joel had some personal stuff going on. A child. That's more important. But we will be back this week, probably on Saturday or Sunday. I don't know anymore. We do it on Saturday generally, and then it usually goes up either on Sunday or Monday. Go to Fightful Overbooked and subscribe, and you'll get that show and so much more involving a lot of great people. Go support them.
Also, go support this Roundtable podcast too, and the Jabronis and everybody here that does all amazing stuff. I'm very humble and fortunate to do this show. So, do a good deed, pay it forward, as we say, over Wicked Crazy Pinfalls. Other than that, got somebody excited about NXT next week. Other than that, guys, do a good deed, pay it forward. Drew just basically Carmelo Hayes this thing about the Wicked Crazy title. He called a shot. So, all right, guys, have a good night and go donate. Do a good deed.